Spence. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first, so let's get started. Look, this is the problem with prematurely crowning things. And we always want to do this in sports. We get a new team that's great, we get a new player that's great, we get a new whatever that's great, and we want to elevate them to the highest possible status, especially now in today's day and age where you can not only be doing great things in your sport, it's going to go viral on Twitter, it's going to be on YouTube, it's going to be on TikTok, it's going to be all over the place. And we all want to say this is the next thing or the newest thing is the best thing. It happens a lot. And sometimes, not even sometimes, there is teams that deserve to be put on a pedestal because of what they've accomplished. But then sometimes we keep raising the pedestal or we keep changing the narratives, and we no longer judge them by how we've judged people in sports and teams forever. And so we create this new standard, and a lot of times this standard goes awry. When you're discussing things in sports or really any topic, you know, it's political season, everyone's voting, hopefully went out and voted, in America at least, you should know the whole picture of the candidate, or in this case, the team or player that you're talking about. And it shouldn't be such a red flag to discuss the whole picture. Now, I am a known Kansas City hater because I've been a Bronco fan my whole life. Guess what? Kansas City, you have 3 fan bases that absolutely hate you. They're all in your division. Welcome to being in the NFL. But I don't think that takes away from what I'm about to say about the Chiefs. The Chiefs last night improved to 8-0. They beat the Bucs. And here's what is true about the Kansas City Chiefs. They have, on any given play, the best quarterback in the NFL. They have the most accomplished quarterback in the NFL currently playing. They have the most accomplished head coach and the best head coach actively in the NFL. They have, by most accounts, the best defensive coordinator in football. They have, in his prime, the best tight end in football, and still a very savvy, can get you catches, especially on third down, a very productive Pro Bowl-esque tight end in Travis Kelce, formerly, during his prime, one of the best in the league, and he's one of the best all time. They've also got Chris Jones, who is a dominant defensive lineman, interior pressure. All that stuff is true. And they have one of the 2-3 best defenses in the NFL. All this stuff is true. And when we discuss Kansas City, and as most people do, and again, I think the media, because there was this big shell shock of everyone predicted last year they went wrong because of how the offense looked, and they didn't believe this version of the Chiefs could win a title, they have all now turned into, it is bad, and we're not going to ever say anything negative about the Chiefs again. They're 8-0, they keep winning, etc., etc. I compared the Chiefs to the Steelers a couple weeks ago. You guys called me idiots. I still stand on that. We can say nice things about the Chiefs, and you can discuss what they're actually great at, while at the same time including the whole story. Tom Brady's the greatest football player ever. You know what was a part of his story for years and for some people forever? Deflategate. Spygate. There's people that in the great story of Tom Brady, 11 Super Bowl appearances, 7 wins, all-time leader in touchdowns, yards, basically every statistical all-time achievement you could have at the quarterback position, several MVPs, all that. The quarterback and player we acknowledge as the GOAT. People still associate cheating with him. And people will always do that because for Tom Brady, when he came into the league, I guess it was still fair to tell the entire story. Now, some people have changed their opinions on Deflategate and Spygate, but that does not mean that they have left the full story of Tom Brady. So when we tell the story of the Kansas City Chiefs, it's okay to say, Yes, they're 8-0. Yes, they're two-time defending champions. Yes, they have the best head coach quarterback combo. They have the best defensive coordinator. They've got a dominant defensive lineman. They have a Hall of Fame tight end. All this stuff is true. But then let's also get to the part where we discuss something that is becoming synonymous with the Chiefs are the referees. And I don't believe, be very clear, I think they win this game with or without. This is not they only win because of the refs. I don't think that's true. But if something keeps happening, and you can say what you want, I know there's some people that say, we only notice it with the Chiefs because they're in all these primetime games. If you just watch football on a given Sunday, you watch your favorite team, generally the refs did an okay job. Generally speaking, there's a handful of teams every year who just commit mad penalties. They're not very ill-disciplined. They commit much penalties, and they're usually some of the worst teams in the league, and we let it be. Then for about the next 20 to 25 teams, normally from a given Sunday, you'll feel like, oh man, we got some calls, they got some calls. That's the normal experience you'll feel as a fan. Feel like we got screwed over on this, but we feel like maybe we got away with this here. And I'm not a proponent of call every penalty. I talked to a guy who's a referee for flag football, and I'm not a proponent. You could call holding on almost every single play when you look at the offensive defensive lineman. But I don't want that. No one wants that. It'd make for a terrible product. But that's the important thing. The NFL is a product. The game of football is a product they're trying to sell to the public. And when the Kansas City Chiefs, again, in prime time because of the two-time defending champs, in prime time because they're supposed to be the best team in football, all these things that come with them, you come away from last night's game again going, hey, that face mask penalty on Tristan Wirfs, one of the best left tackles in the game of football, a guy who should get the benefit of the doubt because of how great he is, he gets shoulder pads and it's called face mask. People are like, we'll be holding anyway. Well, that's the difference in a 15-yard penalty and a 5-yard penalty. And then you get the very clear at the end, the right tackle, he is so much of a false start that he almost runs into the guy in motion, and the refs go, I see it. Again, I'm not saying that the Chiefs only win games because of the referees. But we attach Spygate, we attach Deflategate. That was attached to Tom Brady for years and pretty much his entire career up into New England. A lot of people didn't really separate it until some people started to separate, okay, maybe that's more of a Bill Belichick thing versus a Brady thing. But even Troy Aikman, not even 7-8 years removed, there's an interview of him going on Colin Cowherd show not even 7-8 years ago, and he's saying, you know what? If those footballs were deflated, I will go to my grave believing it's because Tom Brady wanted them deflated. By this point, Tom Brady already established himself as one of the greatest quarterbacks ever, if not the greatest quarterback ever. At this point in time, Tom Brady already established he's one of the greatest players of all time. He had already had a full resume. I know he continued to play until he was 40 and past 40, but he had already accomplished all of these things, and that was still a part of his story. But these Kansas City Chiefs, because we want to anoint them, go back to the very beginning of this, because we want to anoint them. We want to say, this is the best we've ever seen. This is the greatest player ever. Just because you want them to be there, until they've done it, don't just give them every benefit of the doubt until they've earned that. Again, compare them. If the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, who a lot of people think they are, then his comparison is the New England Dynasty and Tom Brady, who still have asterisks. So why is it such a taboo, or you're just a hater if you're speaking on the asterisks surrounding the Kansas City Chiefs, where it seems like every single game, we don't come out of it just going, Mahomes threw for 300, 400 yards. Mahomes is brilliant. The defense was amazing. No, it just seems like almost every single game, you get those one or two calls. And I'll even prove it with this. Can you remember the last two games that we didn't really feel like that? The last two games where you could make an argument. And again, I'm not talking about holding. I don't care about holding specifically. I think if you were a ref, you could call holding almost every single play. And that's just the way the NFL has been forever. But I'm talking about clear guys getting there early. Like, the Chiefs play this physical brand of defense, and that's fine. It's very much pressure, play really hard man coverage, and they're allowed to do that because even the way the game ended last night, the throw Baker made, the Chiefs defender got there pretty early, and there's a lot of those where they get there pretty early, and those are supposed to be very clear pass interference, very clear interference penalties. And again, if the Chiefs are great, and they are, let them do it. If the refs say they don't want to screw the game up, or the refs don't want to be, they don't want to blow the whistle at a pivotal time in the game, that has to apply for both teams. It can't just be what is clearly looks like evident to favor one team. And again, we held Brady to this. Cheating was a part of the story of Tom Brady forever. Cheating was a part of Tom Brady's story the entire time he was in New England. So why aren't the refs, and why is it so audacious to say the refs and questionable calls are a part of Kansas City's story? I'll do you one better. Even if you take the cheating part, and you want to say cheating is in a different category and that's why it's held differently, okay, let's talk about the refs involved in Tom Brady's career. The first 10 years of Tom Brady's career, in which he had a 50-touchdown season with Randy Moss. He had a league MVP in that same year. He had won 3 out of 4 Super Bowls, gone back-to-back. What was Tom Brady's most iconic play? It wasn't a bomb to Randy Moss. It wasn't a game-winning play in the Super Bowl. Tom Brady's most iconic play the first 10 years of his career was the tuck rule. Something that Raider fans, if you were an active Raider fan during that time, you still think is bull. And that was always brought up with Tom Brady. Again, I just want to be fair here. Call me a hater or not, and I am. But let's just be fair here. If we can hold the GOAT, the greatest of all time, to the standard of this is a part of your story, no matter how great you are, no matter how long you play, we are going to associate you with cheating and a tuck rule, which is a rule we never even heard of until it happened. Why is it sacrilegious to also associate that with the Chiefs, that it feels like the refs are slightly more on their side? And be honest with you, maybe they are. Maybe that's the way the NFL wants it. Maybe the Chiefs do so good ratings, especially now with Taylor Swift, that it is incentivized to look the other way for a potential Chiefs penalty. The NFL is a business, and I'm not here to tell you that sports are rigged, but yeah, you might have to work twice as hard to beat the Chiefs. You might have to overcome that one penalty, that one big play. That's how great teams always are. The Patriots got calls. Peyton Manning's Colts got calls. Peyton Manning's Broncos got calls. Aaron Rodgers in his heyday with the Packers, they got calls. Great players are always going to get calls. Go look at other sports. The NBA has it. Michael Jordan got calls. I know we like to act like he didn't because he played in a more physical era, and so we act like every single time he got hit it wasn't a foul. But they were calling fouls for Mike, and they were calling, especially once he really became Michael Jordan, he was getting some take-your-attacky fouls than what other guys in the league would got. Of course he was. He was Michael Jordan. Why wouldn't he? Again, but let's just be honest. The Chiefs are great. Chiefs right no. Chiefs have best quarterback, best head coach, best defense, best defensive tackle, best maybe potentially best defensive player. And they also get some help from the refs. Like, that should be a part of their story. The same way people villainized Brady, the same way people attach that to other superstars and other great teams. Let's just be fair. And again, just because they're the current does not mean they're the best ever. So why do they get to skate and it's, oh, no, if you bring up the refs, you're just hating, or you're just a poor sport, or you're just a, no. And again, I'm not here to blame the refs for everything, but the refs are a part of their story. So if I can watch that game on Monday night and I can say, you know what, that's exactly who the Chiefs should be. A defense that I don't care what the score is, you could see McDuffie, Bolton, Chris Jones. You see the impact that defense makes. You see Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid, creative play calling. Mahomes throws 3 touchdowns, no picks. DeAndre Hopkins just gets there, catches 2 touchdowns. It was everything that was supposed to be and is great about the Kansas City Chiefs. Ew, I hate saying that. And then you also got at the end some questionable calls, and the face mask was even earlier in the game. Because for these great teams, who have always had to deal with the stigma of the ref, because the refs are going to be skewed towards the great teams and great players. It happens. But we're not allowed to talk about it when it's Kansas City? I don't agree with that. Maybe just my opinion, man. There's a lot to talk about. We did get off to a late start, but there's a lot to talk about today. Please make sure if you have not, go out and vote. Please, please, please go out and vote. Just that's all I'm gonna say to that. The weirdest stat so far that I found early in the NBA season, and it's not, it's weird and discouraging all at the same time. It's all bad. And who Dave Roberts said was the Dodgers' actual World Series opponent. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. their owner is impatient, crazy, and irrational. Because I like Shane Steichen as a head coach. I do. I'm not as familiar with the general manager. I'm not going to really quote, how good or bad he is. He has gotten guys like a Quentin Nelson. If Anthony Richardson did develop, he's gotten a Michael Pittman. So he's, I believe, with who the overall talent on the roster, general manager, good. Good enough, at least. Especially when you have someone like Shane Steichen as your head coach. But I do firmly believe the decision to bench Anthony Richardson was a call from Jim Irsay, who wants to be back in the Peyton Manning era where he's winning 10, 11, 12 games every single year. His quarterback's throwing for 4,000 yards. He has one of the best offenses, one of the best teams in the National Football League. He wants to go back to Andrew Luck those first couple of years, winning 11-plus games, making the playoffs. That's what he believes. He believes that the Indianapolis Colts are one of the best franchises in sports, not just that they were lucky to get two supremely talented quarterbacks. So you draft Anthony, their own. And we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. So the NBA, I've been talking about this. I gave baseball mad shit, and I want to make sure that I'm consistent about this. I gave baseball mad shit for the inability to market their players. I gave baseball mad shit for the ability to stay popularity despite how much talent they have. And I stand on that. I also now, though, am starting to get to a point with the NBA where the NBA, Tony and I discussed this last week, and he believes there's some marketing issues with the NBA. And I'm not going to disagree with that point. I think it's valid. I do think some of again, with the rise of European players who don't really care to be a part of the traditional NBA marketing or the traditional American marketing, I think that's valid. I also just think right now we don't have that many good teams and or players. I think right now there's a real struggle with who's actually good and how invested are you going to stay in a fan base. So I'm a Pelicans fan. We all know that. And the Pelicans are off to a slow start, but a lot of that is injury. So I, at least as a fan, and I'm going to get to this when we get to Team Tuesday part of today, I at least know as a fan, hey, at some point, like the Pelicans are missing the entire starting lineup. Like DeJounte's out, CJ's out, Herb Jones is out, Zion's been out, and Trey Murphy hasn't played this season. So they're missing an entire starting lineup. They're missing well over 100 points a game. So that's why they're struggling. That's pretty easy to tell. The other teams in the NBA don't have the amount of talent that the Pelicans have and don't have necessarily these same kind of situations. Like, if you look at it, there's two, like, go look at this. This blew my mind today. I heard it and I didn't believe it. So I get very rarely just truly stumped. I said this with the Mike McCarthy coaching profile. It was, I think, the last one I did, where I did a blind resume with Mike McCarthy and some other coaches. And I was like, oh, McCarthy actually stacks up. The NBA Eastern Conference has two teams over 500. Two. If the playoffs started today, two teams have a record over 500. That's insane. That's insane. And besides maybe Philadelphia, who you would argue have the same kind of reasoning that I do as a Pelicans fan, which is, oh, well, Paul George, who just came back, but he's going to play more games, and Embiid's going to come back. Those are two of the most injury-prone players in the league. So there's no guarantee, and if they come back, there's more of a guarantee that once they come back, they're also going to sit right back down because they're going to get hurt again. So, again, two teams have a record over 500 in the Eastern Conference. You are struggling with popularity in the NBA, and now when you start to struggle, this is true about life. When you start to struggle or things start to go bad, it just feels like everything's going bad. So again, Tony said the NBA struggles with marketing. Valid. But because they're struggling with marketing, they're also struggling with the college turnout of actually good, productive NBA players, guys who become productive NBA players, which is why you have less good teams. The old superstars are just that. They are now old. LeBron can't carry you. A Kevin Durant, well, Phoenix can't do it. Giannis and Dame are struggling in Milwaukee. Philly, I just talked about Paul George and Joel Embiid are hurt. There's so many things that are now collapsing on the NBA, and this is going to start being a problem because your popularity, again, I'm not the biggest ratings guy. I don't care as much, did you have 10 million people watching or 15 million people watching or 5 million people watching? But I do care about, can you convince the next generation to play your sport? I think this is important. It is so important that it's the one thing the NFL, despite it running away with popularity, despite it running away with numbers, it's the NFL's one true concern. Well, can we convince the next generation to continue playing football? So what does the NFL do? We have all the numbers, we have all these eyes, we have all these people watching, all this advertisement. We are going to promote safety. Because the NFL knows the one thing, its biggest thing that's going to make people not want to play its sport, not want to compete in youth football, not want to keep, playing football as an adult, is situations like Damar Hamlin, situations like Tua. Those are what's going to prevent other young athletes, other young kids from wanting to play the sport of football. So even though the NFL has all the numbers, has all the ratings, it's winning, it is by far and away the most popular thing on the planet, they're worried still, and they're keeping an open mind to what could derail this. The NBA, it feels like right now with Adam Silver, this was never even a thought to them. This feels like they never even were concerned about it. This feels like we've always been this popular. We still have LeBron, KD, Giannis. We're going to keep getting these guys. We're just going to keep getting superstar-esque athletes and superstar-esque players, and we're just going to ride that and we're going to be good. No. Again, you're riding the superstar to staying relevant works when you have LeBron James. It works when you have Shaq. It works when you have Kobe Bryant. It works when you have these megastars. But that's because these megastars are also American and they want to be here. The current megastars of the NBA, Embiid, hurt, international. Jokic, international, doesn't stay here during the offseason. Doesn't really like talking to the media. Doesn't like being in the public. Luka, should be the flashy superstar player in the NBA. Isn't here in the offseason. Doesn't really do a whole lot of media. Giannis, take your pick. A lot of these guys, SGA, they're not here. They're not marketed. The NBA doesn't know how to market them, and they can't carry the league like LeBron. Are going to see, kids saw Michael and wanted to be like Mike. Kids saw Kobe and wanted to play like Kobe. Kids see LeBron and wanted to be like LeBron. Even if it was totally impossible, they saw those guys. They saw Kevin Durant and said, I want to do that. They're not looking at Jokic and going, I want to be that. They're not looking at Giannis, who's just so weirdly disjointed as an athlete, like, I can't do that. Wembanyama's the next probably great NBA player. Kids can't look at him and go, I want to be that. I want to be 7'5" in French. You can't teach that. So they know it's not feasible. And because their teams are less and less good, we're talking about the NFL, and the NFL is suffering from a lack of quality teams. How is the NBA doing? Who are the good NBA teams? Again, in the East, it's Cleveland and it's Boston. Those are the two teams with winning records. And no one trusts Cleveland because Donovan Mitchell, Tony and I talked about this yesterday. Donovan Mitchell, while he puts up the numbers and should be a superstar, no one feels like he's a superstar. The Knicks are struggling with their current version, with this team now that they're a little separated from being the Nova Knicks. Boston, we all know who they are, fine, but no one likes watching Boston play. It's 5 out, shoot a bunch of threes. It's not that exciting. You go to the West, again, the Lakers are off to a good start, but they're older. We don't think it's going to sustain for 82 games. The Warriors are off to a good start, but they're older. We don't feel like it's going to sustain for 82 games. The Suns, it's, how much, can KD continue to do this again for 82 games? We know the Nuggets, but even the Nuggets, they're talking about now this could be their last dance, quote unquote. Also, not everybody gets a last dance. Can we stop that? So the NBA has a real talent problem, a real viewership engagement problem, and that's going to turn into they're going to have a real player retention problem when it comes to the next generation. Because right now, they got to really hope, the one guy they're kind of working, they got to really hope Ant Edwards turns into a superstar. That's what they need. They need Anthony Edwards to be a superstar. Yeah, man, there's NBA's got some problems. And again, I ripped baseball for years, and because I thought baseball couldn't get out of its own way. And the NBA is currently doing a lot of that same stuff, but they're not as talented as Major League Baseball was. Moving on from there. So Dave Roberts went on Mookie Betts' podcast that he does, and they basically were talking about, what was your most exciting part of the postseason. Talking about all these things. Obviously, Mookie's been there for a few years now in LA. The entire time he's been there, it's been Dave Roberts. And they're having this conversation, and it's cool because Mookie does give some good insights. Like, Mookie has a career in media once he's done playing. He's really easy with camera. He's really good. Like, a lot of things. He's going to have a career in media. They both said, and this is interesting, and I think it's true, because I texted two of my friends who are Padre fans this about 5-6 days ago, and that was, they agreed the Padres were actually their World Series. And this happens from time to time. Now, it normally happens in playoff series or Super Bowls where the other team is clearly dominant, and it feels like, I go back to the early Legion of Boom. They said them versus the Niners in the NFC Championship game back in 2013 was the actual Super Bowl, not them versus the Broncos, because they beat the Broncos by 100. And it happens where it's, in certain years in the West, it felt like the Lakers with Kobe and the Spurs with Duncan were clearly the two best teams. So even though they went and played an Eastern Conference team for the NBA Finals, it felt Bonnie, Betts, Freeman, like Kershaw when he's healthy. I understand he's not the same pitcher, but name value. Tyler Glass now. Like, they just start rolling off name after name after name, and it's another 300 hit. Really stacked team. It's a really loaded team. And if the Dodgers didn't exist, really stacked team. It's a really loaded team. And if the Dodgers didn't exist, for all the people that want to complain about the salary cap and the Dodgers having a super team, it is the Padres would be that if the Dodgers didn't exist. And think about this. The Padres gave away Soto last year. Like, the Padres had everybody they currently have plus Juan Soto. So the Padres are absolutely one of the best teams in the Major League Baseball. They absolutely are probably the Dodgers' toughest matchup. They were talking about, Padres kicked our ass all year, so to finally get it back in the playoffs, like, it felt good, but we knew that was our biggest challenge. Like, the Padres are stacked. Again, are the Yankees stacked? Yes. Were the Yankees a legitimate AL champion? I hate to admit it, but yes. But when you start naming off guys, if you don't consider the fact that Stanton was clearly on a different level in the playoffs, just his regular season performance, there is a big drop-off after you get past the Yankees' big three. You go Cole, Soto, Judge, and then there's a drop-off. Versus these other teams, the Padres, Dodgers, you can name 5, 6, 7 guys on each of these teams. And that's with injuries. That's with the Padres getting rid of Soto. Like, these are some truly stacked teams. These are probably, again, I texted my friends a couple days ago. I'm like, yeah, looking back on it, those are probably the two best teams in baseball. And I'll end on this because I saw a bunch of people repeating this. And they're like, you see, this is proof. The only people that disrespect the Padres are Dodgers fans. Even the organization knows how good they are. Yeah, that's the point. Fans, especially of rival teams, aren't supposed to give you your props. That's not their job. Do you think Red Sox fans are giving the Yankees credit for them winning a World Series? Do you think that pick a team. Do you think the Giants are celebrating what the Dodgers did? No. And fans don't have to give a fuck. Fans do not have to care. It's not another team's fan base job to say, your team is actually really good this year. I think there's a real chance. The organizations have to acknowledge it because they're actually competing and their livelihood depends on can they beat their rivals. So yeah, they have to consider Mookie Betts, Dave Roberts, these guys. They have to consider, hey, is San Diego actually really good? Yes, they are. Okay, how are we going to beat them? Because we know what's coming up. But as a fan, I don't have to admit shit about your team. We just started off the show. I said, I am a proud Kansas City hater. It doesn't mean I can't be objective with certain takes. But I'm a proud Kansas City hater. Why? Because I am a fan of a different team who is a rival in their division. I don't ever have to give them props. I don't ever have to say something nice about them. I'm a fan when it comes to specifically that team. So let's not act like the fans are responsible or the fans need to say something nice about them. No, fuck them. Yeah, the Padres are probably the second best team in baseball with absolutely zero respect to the New York Yankees. With that being said, we still have Team Tuesday and some other stuff to catch up on here. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. hard left in this one. I don't even think I'm necessarily wrong, just in terms of what happened on Sunday, but I think Sunday was the first time I thought this is actually a big issue, which the hard left is, I think I'm done defending John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, Tony has been telling me for the last several weeks, has never been a great coach. He's just been a good coach, but a message that's dying out because he's been there for so long. And I've given some pushback on that. I do think John, in my opinion, mainly because of his success, has always been he's a really good head coach. And then obviously all these guys need players, right? Like John Harbaugh inherited Ray Lewis. He inherited Ed Reed. He got a young Joe Flacco who turned into a great quarterback. But I was watching the game on Sunday and I'm like, look, man, I'm all for being creative, especially in the goal line. Andy Reid has made that really popular. All these reverse gadget plays that specifically he's been able to pull off. But the reality is, why are we doing a direct snap to Derrick Henry on fourth down? The most dangerous, most effective play of the entire NFL season has been Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry RPO. And you just take it out of Lamar's hands. You don't even fake it. You don't even give him the chance to make it seem like he could be involved in the play. You just totally remove him. Hard left, and we are back. I do this every Tuesday, and I just want to be very clear about it. I don't mind people that are biased. I just wish more people were upfront about it. If you're upfront about your bias, then you can have an honest conversation once bias has been established. We don't care. It's only in sports or politics, I guess, too. Don't forget to go vote. That we care about the bias means like you're discredited. Everyone's biased with their family. You love your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandfather, your aunt, your uncle more than somebody else loves that, than you love somebody else's, and they love theirs more than they love yours, and that's fine, and we all understand that. So, just admit your bias. I am admittedly more biased towards my family, my friends, my sports teams, and you are more admittedly biased towards your family, your friends, your sports teams. Like, it's not very hard to understand, and yet some people still get upset when you talk about it. So with that being said, let's talk about it. It is Team Tuesday. Every Tuesday over here, we do take the time, and I break down the two teams that but generally speaking, it's the two teams that I follow. And if you don't like this part of the show because you don't like other teams, that's fine. Don't watch. I totally understand, but this is for me, not for you. So let's first break down why I walked away from the Bronco game on Sunday super excited, and why I think a lot of Bronco country is wild right now. So first and foremost, when you're watching the game, you're obviously excited, and I was texting Tony before the game, and I said, hey, look, these are the things that I think if I see happening, Baltimore's going to just run all over Denver. I was nervous about Derrick Henry getting going. I was nervous about the tight ends, linebackers going to be able to cover, because that is Denver's weakest spot currently on defense. They don't have a great middle linebacker. I mean, they even brought in Quan Alexander and didn't work out so well. So linebacker was clearly the issue for Denver. But and Denver got blown out. And so in the moment, I was distraught. I was beaten down. I was like, damn. Like I really thought we had a chance. I've been screaming Denver's gonna be 6-4. I still believe they will be 6-4 because I believe they will beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday to give them their first loss. But we'll talk about that more on Sunday morning. With Denver, though, where I was really excited is I could repeat the same stuff that I've been repeating, which is rookie quarterback, a lot of cap space coming up because Russ's deal is about to expire, come off the cap space. You're doing rookie quarterback, $40 million dead cap. The defense is much improved. The O-line's improved. Receivers and tight ends, you'll figure it out, and you've got cap space to figure it out. And running back probably at this point. Javonte was really I feel bad for Javonte. I think he was off to a really promising start, and then his knee, his rookie year, or second year in the league, tearing his ACL, I don't think he's been the same player. So I feel bad, but I just don't think he's going to be back. But what I felt really good about after I got over the, damn, we lost, and I got over the fan part of it, and I really sat down and I started to watch the game, I was like, okay, the coaching part of the game, which is where Denver's going to exceed because of Sean Payton, because of Vance Joseph, because of a guy who I don't see getting enough what's my man's name? Damn, and now I'm blanking on his name. But coaching is what is going to make Davis Webb, the quarterback coach. That's where Denver's going to excel. because they're not as talented as other teams. Part of that is because of the Russ contract and them not being able to sign as many guys as they want. And part of that is they're really young in areas. Again, Denver's defense, as good as it's been, has 1 first-round pick on it. 1 first-round pick. They just extended Jonathan Cooper this year, or a couple days ago, who I love Coop, really good player. He was a 7th-round pick. So Denver's got 1 first-round pick on defense. That's Surtain. But in those first couple of drives, now the game, though we have the Bo Nix touchdown, obviously, there should have been a second Bo Nix touchdown, but he overthrew Troy Franklin. But Sean, during those first 15 to 20 plays, which are totally scripted, the stuff they go over all week, that Denver was competitive while playing the Ravens. Yes, Lamar got off to a great start, but they were able to shut down Derrick Henry in that first quarter, as well as the throw to Franklin and the throw to Bo Nix would have put Denver leading that game. Didn't happen. That's when the talent starts to separate. Again, your coaching, you can tell it's evident. Well-coached teams, good coaches, good play designers. That first quarter, those first 15 to 20 scripted plays, that's more of a coaching thing. Are they scheming guys open? Are they getting guys in the right position? You could almost be competitive in that first part of the game solely off coaching, even if you're at a talent mismatch, which Denver was at a talent mismatch. Baltimore's one of the 3 best teams in the league. But I felt good after the fact going, okay, the coaching still looks like it's working. Vance Joseph, now, I do think Vance Joseph, I think he will get better at this. I do think this is 1,000% on talent. Is part of Denver's success on defense is it's them in Minnesota basically go, hey, we are going to blitz as much as anybody. Denver has not been doing as Minnesota is more of the exotic blitzing. It's very reminiscent of Dick LeBeau in Pittsburgh, what he used to do. Denver's been a lot more straightforward. Denver's been a lot more, I'm basically going to run like engage 8 type stuff, and I'm going to put Riley Moss, PS2, and McMillan on an island. Because Denver has still, I know they got torched on Sunday, but still the 3 best corner combination in the National Football League, and PS2 is the best corner in the game. And that's what Denver's done. And Vance almost psyched himself out of doing that on Sunday because he knew he was at a talent mismatch. Like, he just knew, okay, we're not as good as the Baltimore Ravens. I know that, so I have to trick the Ravens. I have to do something that they're not going to expect. And, like, that's going to be the thing that throws them off. That's how we're going to win this game. I think that will get better with time because as he has more confidence in these players, which right now, Cooper just got re-signed, so there's clear confidence. Nick Bonito, even though they didn't count that as a sack because it was, I guess, a designed run, but it was weird. He hit Lamar in the backfield, but they didn't count as a sack. You have 2 established pass rushers. You have, again, your corner setup, Surtain, Moss, McMillan, Zach Allen's playing like a beast. You're going to eventually fix your linebacker spot, which is a clear issue at the moment, which that is an issue when you're playing a team like Baltimore with Lamar's, the way he can run, the way Derrick Henry's running. Eventually they can get linebacker fixed. But you could tell he was coaching as if he had to do something different because he was going against Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Baltimore's got a good offensive line. Like, you could see he was coaching as if he knew he was running JV versus varsity and he has to do something special. Now, hopefully, again, that will happen less and less. Denver continues to draft, which I still have a lot of faith in George Payton. Again, Miners got re-signed, PS2 got re-signed, now Cooper. That's 3 picks from your 2021 draft class that have all been extended, who are all key players. Surtain, obviously the best in the league. Miners, one of the best in the league. And Cooper's a really good pass rusher. So, a lot of faith there in what they're doing. And again, I think they are going to beat the Chiefs. I will go more in depth on that on Sunday. But ironically, Bronco hater and lifelong Chiefs fan and maybe most annoying man in sports media, Nick Wright, was talking about this, and he used the same exact rationale, maybe he's watching, that I used, which is when Denver and Kansas City plays, it's a division matchup. Mahomes has the most interceptions against any team against Denver. He doesn't. His first 2 or 3 starts, he really torched Denver. If you look at his points per game since then, Mahomes does not light up the Broncos. Like, I know he wins, but he does not light them up. And this is an even better this is the best defense Denver has presented him with since his first start back in 2016. And so, and again, it's division matchups. You're either the in division usually is tougher games. There's always, when you have a dominant team like the Chiefs have been over the last 7-8 years, you normally have one team that you just totally dominate division, which for the Chiefs, that's the Raiders. And then you have another team or two potentially, which you could argue for the Chiefs, that they play the Chargers and the Broncos close and competitive. Again, they see each other the most. They know each other the most. And when you put together, again, I have great respect for what Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo are doing in Kansas City. And I have great respect for what Brian Flores and what's my man's name in Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell, are doing in Minnesota. Denver's combination of Payne and Joseph are right there. Kansas City is coming off of a game in which they just went to overtime. Tough game against Tampa. Mahomes, who I'm not saying is hurt, but was limping. Again, the Chiefs play a really physical brand of football. So these guys are starting to worn out. They're going to be on the shorter week versus Denver. Yes, it's in Kansas City, but Denver's actually a better road team than home team at the moment, statistically speaking. So I have a lot of faith that Denver wins this weekend. And so we were in because too, the Ravens game was even harder because I would have said we could have beat the Ravens, or was more likely if the Ravens had beat the Browns. But because the Ravens lost to the Browns, they came into that game pissed off. And you lost that complacent factor that I think you will still have with the Chiefs, who are 8-0. And again, I think they're 8-0, but not playing 8. And I think the Lions are playing the best in the league. But you can't take away what the Chiefs have done as far as a record. And so that's my breakdown this week of the Denver Broncos. Going to the NBA, man, can the Pelicans just get healthy? So can we just get healthy? Like, that's all I want. DeJounte, again, I said it earlier in the show, DeJounte, CJ, Zion, Trey Murphy, Herb Jones all missed yesterday's game. That's what do you want from them? And all of them and Jordan Hawkins. And all those guys missed the previous game except Jordan Hawkins, who got hurt during that game. So the Pelicans are missing well over 100 points of offense. Easily. And the best defender, best defensive guard in the league in Herb Jones. So there's a lot of injuries right now. I know there's people that are angry at Willie Green, but I'm like, what do you want him to do? It's pretty much B.I., Jose, and Messi who's playing well as a rookie, but is not really a scorer. He's just a shot blocker. But again, Messi, Alvarado, they're not offensive guys. So a lot's on B.I.'s plate right now, and look, man, it's too many injuries. What I will say, though, what has become very interesting. Now, everybody talked this year about, at the beginning of the season, there was a story going around. Because Kawhi was announced he was going to miss some time, as normal, at the beginning of the season. Everybody started going, do you know who owns the Clippers' first-round pick? It's the Oklahoma City Thunder, because they have 30 first-round picks. What if the Clippers aren't good? They don't have Kawhi. Now, what if Cooper Flag ends up in OKC? Do you know? So the Clippers, not great, but are going to get Kawhi back. And Kawhi's there. Kawhi re-signed. Kawhi is a Clipper. James Harden's a Clipper. He re-signed long-term, right? Do you know who actually would have the best odds to win the number 1 overall pick right now in the NBA? Well, of course, it's the Doc Rivers-led Milwaukee Bucks, who are 1-6. And Giannis is hurt. And Dame's not playing well. And Dame doesn't want to be there. Giannis put out this passive-aggressive, yeah, I think I'm going to trade, if we don't win, maybe they'll trade me, which is kind of the sign of hey, if we don't get this together, I'm going to trade me. And you know who has pick swap rights with the Milwaukee Bucks for the number 1 overall pick? Because do we remember Drew Holiday's actually been traded twice? So the Pelicans have The Pelicans have the swap with the Bucks for the first overall pick if they get it. So they have pick swaps regardless. It's the Pelicans' choice if they want to swap. So if the Bucks totally implode, trade Giannis, trade Dame, Middleton, Portis, we'll see what happens. And what if the Bucks end up as the worst team in basketball? Which is feasible if you look at the fact of if they trade those guys away, plus they're just not playing well to begin with right now. What if that's the worst team in basketball? And then the Pelicans get the number 1 overall pick. Now, here's the thing with the Pelicans. This is I am so pro this. I've been talking about this a lot with the Broncos, but I think it also applies to the Pelicans. At some point, you do end up with too much talent. You do. And if everybody can't confirm their roles with said talent, you will move on. So the Thunder right now, everyone's like, they have so much talent, they have so much talent. The Thunder's talent is really in 4 guys who have clearly separated. SGA is clearly separated, Holmgren, and the Jalen Williams brothers, right? They're not really brothers, but they got the same name. What makes the Thunder interesting is then everybody else is kind of settled in the role player. With the Pelicans, I could argue, again, I just told you who missed games. Now, I think CJ's on his way out as far as being on this team long term. But the Pelicans are going to be in a situation. DeJounte Murray, Herb Jones, B.I., Zion Williamson, Trey Murphy, Yves Missy, who's been arguably the best rookie, and it's not a great rookie class, but arguably the best rookie, Jordan Hawkins, Jose Alvarado. Again, I think CJ's on his way out. I just named 8 guys who are all clearly quality NBA players. A handful of them are probably going to make an argument that they could be stars in this league. And then you're going to add an additional top 3 pick? Where I think the Pelicans need to make sure, and I believe in Griff, and again, I sent this to Tony and Willie. It was hilarious to see the reaction because Tony was like, when did they do this? And I'm like, David Griffin's a genius, and he got to pick a few years out from the Bucks to do a trade swap. It was brilliant. And it's like, at some point, so because the Pelicans have a lot of guys who are missing games. Now, I don't think DeJounte Murray, currently what I would consider injury prone, his is kind of more of a freak accident. He's played 70-plus games. Zion obviously is an injury risk. It seems that's been his thing since he's been in the NBA. Even though he did play a career in games last year. CJ, again, I just don't think he's going to be on the team long term. Herb, I don't worry about, and Trey Murphy, I don't worry about. They're more individual one-time injury type things. So if you're Zion Williamson, you the guy. Because you're the top 3 pick. B.I. was too, but B.I.'s been drafted so long ago now, he's not viewed in that same light, even though B.I.'s been hooping. If you're Zion, I said at the beginning of the season, the pressure's on you because you got to be aggressive because I think this is the most talented the Pelicans have ever been. It also means it is on you because now with all this talent and these guys are going to be actively producing on the court, and I'm not wishing bad against Zion. I hope Zion the best. I hope Zion turns into the star player we all believe he is and can be long term. They're going to have a chance to potentially replace you with a guy who is in your talent class. Like, Zion's going to get more chances than anybody because his talent is just different than everybody's. It just is. Like, I've seen Zion play, and there's just things he can do on a basketball court that aren't human. They're not normal. They're weird. They are over the top. He is just a unique one-of-one talent. B.I. has a great scorer, but the league's full of great scorers. Hawkins is a great shooter. The league's full of great shooters. DeJounte Murray is a really good point guard. There's a lot of good point guards. There's nobody in the league that can do what Zion Williamson does. And so, with that, it makes me think they're going to have a chance to get another top 3 talent. And if you had, and again, this is why Zion's going to get the most chances. If you had flipped Zion and B.I., this wouldn't even be a discussion. The fan base would be ecstatic and going crazy. Oh my gosh, we're going to pair a Cooper Flag or someone like that with Zion. Like if B.I. was the guy who was injured and Zion was playing as well as B.I. is, it wouldn't even be a convo. The fan base would be over the moon. But because B.I. is hooping, and B.I. looks like right now if they don't re-sign B.I., I'm going to cry. And then you're going to have a chance to pair. And then again, Zion's got to get back. And Zion isn't, it's not like he's not playing well, but just these last couple of games, the injuries have been weird. And because he's so associated with injuries, he missed his rookie year and he's missed a bunch of games up until last year. That is a stigma that's going to follow him until he puts together consecutive seasons. Joel Embiid has an MVP and hasn't escaped the injury clause or the injury stigma around him. So let's just be very clear here. Zion needs to get back and Zion needs to be healthy because this team is so talented right now. Again, and they don't have what Boston has, which is fully realized versions of all their potential stars. Like Boston having Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown probably at their peak is obviously a huge difference. But after you get past that, the 3 through 8 for the Pelicans are as talented as any team in the NBA. So Zion needs to get back because this team is full of talent and they're going to be drafting potentially, if Milwaukee can't figure this out, potentially another top 3 talent. Man. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily with closing words. I am the first person I've done on several different occasions to come in here and criticize baseball's lack of marketing, their lack of being able to show off their talent. And I've always done it from this place of love, even though it's one of the things I'm probably the most critical about, which is you could make a really easy argument. A really easy argument. Baseball is more talented right now with its current crop of players than the NBA, the NFL. I'm not as big into hockey, but take any sports league in the world, baseball, there's an argument it is more talented than all of them. These are just the facts. But baseball has always struggled, especially over these last 10 to 15 years, to market a new set of stars, even though you've had a Mike Trout, even though you've had a Shohei Ohtani now for several years, even though you've had Mookie Betts. They have struggled mightily to get these new stars into that same kind of limelight that an Alex Rodriguez was in, that a Derek Jeter was in, and it wasn't just a Yankee thing. We couldn't even get the other great players. Like Albert Pujols did not need a big market to be a superstar. I am the first person I've done on several different occasions to come in here and criticize baseball's lack of. And we are back. Sorry about that. So to close out here for this Tuesday, I want to talk about people will always criticize a decision that a coach or a manager makes if it doesn't work out. That's very typical fan behavior, and that's unfortunately become very typical media behavior, is that we don't have a consensus on what is considered a good strategy. We generally just tend to go with it works, it don't. And so if it does work, it's good. If it doesn't work, it's not good. So Todd Bowles last night doesn't go for 2. And the consensus from a lot of people is, well, it's a dumb idea. Why would you give Patrick Mahomes more of an opportunity? And the only thing I'll say is maybe last night it was a bad idea because that was the best Mahomes has played all season. Hopkins has 2 touchdowns. It was the best the Chiefs offense have looked the entire regular season. The reality is, though, this is how teams are going to start treating the Chiefs until this offense puts together consecutive really good games. Because this is how they've always treated teams that are, great defensively, not great offensively. They don't get the same kind of, they're not treated the same. That's just the reality of it. If you're a great offensive team because you have a great quarterback and receivers and you're scoring a bunch of points, then yeah, we don't want to give you a chance to, run the ball or keep another chance on offense to go down the field. But that's not who the Chiefs have been all year. And so I will give Todd Bowles some grace that, yeah, I think this is, with this current iteration of the Chiefs, not saying they won't get more receivers and Mahomes won't get back to throwing for 250, 300 yards a game, multiple touchdowns, and they won't get back to that more high-flying offense that they've been in the past. But as things currently stand, yeah, I'm going to go with a more conservative and more defensive approach because I don't think this is a dynamic offensive team. I'm more worried about them defensively. And people are taking the Baker Mayfield as, he knew they were going to win. Like, no, I don't believe that either. I think Baker was upset because, anyone who's a competitor, Baker is a super competitor. You can say what you want about his talent. You can say what you want about his play. But he is as competitive, if you look at his entire story as an athlete, as competitive as anyone. And so he just wanted the ball. He would have done that if you were giving the ball back to the last year of Ben Roethlisberger with the Steelers or whoever you think is a low-quality quarterback. If they were playing the Giants, you don't think highly of Daniel Jones, he would have had that same reaction if they were in overtime. He just wanted the ball because that's what a competitor would want. But again, we haven't determined as a collective of fans or analysts or whoever's making the call what is quote-unquote the right decision, what's quote-unquote not the right decision. And so because of that, everyone's allowed to second-guess it. Everyone's allowed to question it. But if I'm Todd Bowles, you have to do what you are comfortable with in that moment and what you feel is the right strategy going forward, because you're going to be in that position potentially again, and you can't make it every single time at a coin toss. Oh, do we do this? Do we do that? Yes, you will react differently per team, but if you're in that same position, if you meet the goals that you want to meet, which is theoretically getting back to a Super Bowl, theoretically playing Kansas City again, and if you had to be in that exact same situation which the Niners were in last year in the Super Bowl. What do you want? What do you want to do? And Todd Bowles did, in my opinion, what he thought was correct, and I agree with him. And everybody that's coming out and killing him, they're only killing him because it didn't work. I guarantee they would have had this same kind of let's take the other side opinion or the other side of analysis if the Chiefs didn't just walk down the field and score. So give some Todd Bowles some grace, give Todd Bowles some credit. That's how it goes, man. Sometimes you just, you lose the game, you lose the game. But I don't think that was the call that lost them the game. With that being said, appreciate everybody as always. We will be back tomorrow. Don't forget our power rankings are out tomorrow, as well as a little bit of preview going into Sunday. And then potentially a Thursday show this week because we didn't go Sunday morning. But we will see you guys tomorrow. This is HardFoul.